There is a place where time moves differently, where stone whispers of eternity, and the desert wind carries the memory of kings, a civilization born from the gift of a river and sustained for over 3,000 years by the unwavering belief that gods walked among men. This is ancient Egypt. Few cultures in all of human history have captured our imagination as deeply or endured as long. From the Great Pyramid to the golden mask of Tutankhamun, from the riddle of the Sphinx to the sacred halls of Karnak, Egypt is everywhere and always. It is the civilization that refuses to die. But to truly understand Egypt, we must go back. Back to the river that made it all possible. Back to the very beginning. In the northeastern corner of Africa, a great river cuts through one of the harshest deserts on Earth. The Nile, the longest river in the world, flows over 4,000 miles from the mountains of Central Africa to the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. For the ancient Egyptians, the Nile was not simply a river, it was life itself. Every year, without fail, the Nile flooded its banks. The waters rose and receded, leaving behind a rich layer of dark, fertile silt, a narrow green ribbon cutting through an endless sea of sand. The Egyptians called this fertile strip Kemet. The Black Land, the desert beyond, red and merciless, they called Deshret, the Red Land. Between these two worlds, life flourished. Crops grew, animals grazed, villages rose and multiplied. The predictable rhythm of the flood, a cycle of inundation, planting, and harvest, gave the Egyptians something rare and precious: stability, abundance, time to think, time to build. While other early civilizations struggled against droughts and famines, Egypt feasted. The Nile was the engine of empire, a river so central to Egyptian life that the ancient historian Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BC, famously declared that Egypt was the gift of the Nile. He was right. By around 3,500 BC, two distinct kingdoms had formed along the Nile. To the south, in the narrow valley of the upper river, lay Upper Egypt, a land of rocky cliffs and narrow floodplains. To the north, where the Nile fanned out into a broad delta before emptying into the Mediterranean, lay Lower Egypt, flat, marshy, and extraordinarily fertile. These were not just geographic differences, they were cultural, political, and deeply symbolic. The pharaohs of Upper Egypt wore a tall white crown. Those of Lower Egypt wore a red crown. Each kingdom had its own patron deity, its own traditions, its own power. For centuries, the two kingdoms existed side by side, sometimes trading, sometimes warring. Then, around 3100 BC, something extraordinary happened. A king from Upper Egypt, known to history as Narmer and by some traditions as Menes, launched a campaign to unite the two kingdoms under a single rule. The details are lost to time, but the result was revolutionary. For the first time, all of Egypt, from the cataracts of the Upper Nile to the shores of the Mediterranean, was unified under one crown. To commemorate this achievement, Narmer wore both crowns, a symbol so powerful it became a permanent part of the royal regalia. The double crown, combining the white of the south and the red of the north, declared to all the world, Egypt is one. The age of the pharaohs had begun. The centuries that followed saw Egypt develop at breathtaking speed. Writing emerged. Administration flourished. Art and architecture reached heights that would not be surpassed for millennia. But it is one achievement above all others that defines this era, known as the Old Kingdom, the pyramids. Around 2630 BC, a pharaoh named Djoser commissioned his chief architect, Imhotep, to build him a tomb unlike anything ever attempted. The result was the Step Pyramid at Saqqara, the world's first large-scale stone structure. 6 stepped terraces rising 60 meters into the Egyptian sky, a stairway to the heavens, built for a god king. But this was only the beginning. Over the next century, Egyptian builders refined and perfected their craft. The culmination came at Giza, on a plateau overlooking the Nile, where 3 pharaohs, Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure, built the most famous structures in human history. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, completed around 2560 BC, stands 138 meters tall. It was built from over 2 million stone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons. For nearly 4,000 years, it remained the tallest man-made structure on Earth. Who built these monuments? Not slaves, as was long believed, but skilled workers. Tens of thousands of them, organized into gangs, fed by the state, and buried with honors near the pyramids they helped create. They were craftsmen, engineers, and laborers who understood that they were building for eternity. Beside the pyramid of Khafra crouches the Great Sphinx, a lion's body with a human face gazing forever eastward toward the rising sun. Its purpose remains debated. Its presence is undeniable. It watches over the plateau as it has for 4,500 years, a silent sentinel of the ancient world. To understand Egypt is to understand its gods. The ancient Egyptians were among the most deeply religious peoples who ever lived. Their faith was not a private matter. It was woven into every aspect of daily life, from the rising of the sun to the flooding of the Nile. At the heart of the Egyptian cosmos was Ra, the sun god. Each morning, Ra sailed his golden bark across the sky, bringing light and warmth to the world. Each evening, he descended into the underworld, battling the forces of chaos and darkness before rising again at dawn. Life itself was Ra's daily victory over death, but the most dramatic of all Egyptian myths belonged to Osiris. Once the king of the gods, Osiris was murdered by his jealous brother Set, who sealed him in a coffin and cast it into the Nile. His wife Isis, possessed of powerful magic, recovered his body and breathed life back into him. Their union produced a son, Horus, the falcon-headed god of kingship. Horus grew up to avenge his father, battling Set in a great cosmic conflict before finally claiming the throne of the gods. The pharaoh on earth was understood to be the living incarnation of Horus, and upon death would become Osiris, joining the eternal cycle of life and resurrection. Anubis, the jackal-headed god, presided over the dead and the sacred art of mummification. Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, recorded the deeds of the deceased. Isis, mother and magician, protected the living and the dead alike. Together they formed a rich and interconnected mythology, a divine drama playing out across the heavens, mirrored by the affairs of humans below. Underlying all Egyptian religion, art and government was a single, all-encompassing concept: Ma'at. Ma'at was truth. It was justice. It was the fundamental order of the universe, the harmony that kept the sun rising, the Nile flooding, the crops growing, and the stars in their courses. Ma'at was not just an idea, she was a goddess. Depicted as a woman with a feather balanced upon her head, the pharaoh's most sacred duty was to uphold Ma'at, to maintain the cosmic order on behalf of both gods and humans. Every decree issued, every temple built, every war waged or peace negotiated was done in service of this cosmic balance. At death, every Egyptian faced judgment. In the Hall of Two Truths, the heart of the deceased was weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If the heart was heavy with sin, if a person had lied, stolen, or acted unjustly, the scales would tip, and the monstrous creature Amit would devour the heart, condemning the soul to oblivion. If the heart was light, the soul would pass into the eternal paradise of the field of reeds. It was a belief system that placed ethics and justice at the very center of existence. To live well was to live in harmony with Ma'at, and in that harmony lay the hope of eternal life. After the splendors of the Old Kingdom, Egypt endured periods of turmoil and fragmentation, but around 1550 BC, a new dynasty rose to power and launched the most brilliant era in Egyptian history, the New Kingdom. It began with the expulsion of the Hyksos, foreign invaders who had occupied the north for over a century, and grew into an empire that stretched from modern-day Sudan in the south to Syria and the Levant in the north. Among the greatest rulers of this age was Hatshepsut, a woman who became pharaoh. Rising to power as regent for her young stepson, she eventually declared herself full pharaoh, adopting the traditional regalia of kingship, including the false beard. Her reign was one of the most prosperous in Egyptian history. She launched ambitious trade expeditions, built magnificent temples, and erected towering obelisks at Karnak. History would try to forget her. Her images were defaced, her name erased, but the stones remembered. Her stepson, Thutmose III, went on to become one of Egypt's greatest military commanders. He campaigned across the Near East in 17 military expeditions, extending Egyptian power to its greatest reach. Ancient historians sometimes call him the Napoleon of Egypt. But perhaps the most famous pharaoh of the New Kingdom, of all of Egypt, was Ramesses II. Ruling for 66 years in the 13th century BC, he was a master of self-promotion as much as military strategy. He fought the Hittites to a standstill at the Battle of Kadesh and then declared it an absolute victory. He built temples everywhere, inscribing his face and name on monuments across the empire. His mortuary temple at Abu Simbel, carved directly into a cliff face, features 4 massive, seated statues of himself, each 20 meters tall, staring out across the desert for eternity. The New Kingdom pharaohs abandoned the pyramid as a burial monument. Instead, they cut their tombs deep into the cliffs of a remote valley on the west bank of the Nile, the Valley of the Kings. Here, the pharaohs were laid to rest with everything they would need for eternity. The walls were painted floor to ceiling with spells, prayers, and vivid depictions of the afterlife. The most famous tomb, discovered intact in 1922 by Howard Carter, belonged to Tutankhamun. He ruled for only 9 years and died at around 19, but his tomb contained over 5,000 objects, including a golden death mask of incomparable beauty. The Egyptians prepared for death with meticulous care. Mummification, preserving the body through natron salt, linen wrappings, and sacred oils, arose from the belief that the soul needed to return to the body after death. They wrote guidebooks for the dead, the Book of the Dead, to help the deceased navigate the underworld and emerge into eternal life. For the ancient Egyptians, death was not an ending, it was a transformation.